Good morning, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Grace Corrigan, and I am the Employment Specialist at INCIGHT. And as you just heard, this session is being recorded today. We'd love to have you keep your cameras on so we can see your smiling faces, but we ask that you just please mute to eliminate background noise. And then after the presentation, we're going to open it up for questions and everybody can unmute at that time. Before we start, I want to share a little bit about INCIGHT. We are excited to celebrate our 20th anniversary this year as a nonprofit. Yes, that is clap-worthy. This is marking a significant milestone for us, and we're just delighted that we have reached this point as a nonprofit. So our mission is changing hearts and minds, leveraging obstacles, and unlocking potential. So we do this through our programs, education and employment programs, and we focus on helping individuals with disabilities and barriers. And if you want to learn more about our programs and our services, you can go to our website, which is INCIGHT.org, or you can give us a call because we always love to hear from people. JobsNow.org is part of our employment program. And one of the ways we connect with job seekers is through these GetAhead events, which are standalone workshops created to give job seekers of all abilities additional tools and resources for their job search. And if you're interested in actually viewing past GetAhead events, we've covered a lot of great topics. You can go to our website, jobsnow.org, and click the GetAhead event tab, and you can watch recordings. Very, very valuable tools there as well. So INCIGHT also hosts in-person job fairs. Our next job fair is on Wednesday, August 14th at the Northwest Natural Building downtown. Registration for that's going to be opened in a couple of weeks, and you can go to our website, jobsnow.org, to register. And then also, now that you've come to a GetAhead event, I'll send you an email with an advertisement to remind you about that. So today, our workshop is called Unlocking Job Seeker Opportunities and Potential, and we're honored to have Meagan Meckey with us. And welcome, Meagan.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks, Grace.
I will go ahead and hand the workshop over to you, and let's all learn.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Grace. And thanks to INCIGHT. I learned about INCIGHT when I started at OnPoint and really love the work they do. So really excited to be here with you all today.
Thank you.
So a little bit about me before we get started. My name's Meagan Meckey, as Grace said. I use she, her pronouns. I come from the mighty Midwest. I'm originally from Minneapolis, Minnesota, and I moved out to Portland in about 2019 to attend the University of Portland. I graduated last year in 2023 with 2 degrees, one in marketing and one in political science. And I started at OnPoint Community Credit Union this past August, so almost here, on their financial wellness team. So I get to do a lot of internal communications, employee events, internal writing, and then a lot of external marketing campaigns and some digital marketing work. And today I'm going to talk a lot about how I got to where I am today and how I went about networking to try to understand what I wanted to do. So we're going to talk about tips for networking, how to utilize your network, who is in your network, how to ask for and attend informational interviews, and how to prep for a job fair. And my hope by the end of this is that everyone will be ready and feeling confident to go out and network for whatever you're looking for. So to start with our tips for networking, we're going to talk about narrowing the scope, understanding who might be in your network, and how you can utilize different tools that are available to you. So when I was in college and when I started networking, I found it really overwhelming. I think I still often do. Like I mentioned, I got 2 different degrees. I have many interests, and there were many fields that I could have pictured myself going into, many jobs I was interested in doing, many industries I wanted to work in. And so I found it sort of overwhelming to get started. And I think no matter where you are in your career, in your job process, it can feel like an overwhelming thing to get started with. So this was passed down to me as great advice that I have followed that helped me a lot, was to first think about what industry interests you. I never thought to break it down by industry. I, at the time, was really interested in the tech industry, since I knew Portland was a really big hub for some smaller tech companies. I was interested in the marketing agency world. Portland's also home to a lot of different agencies, and I was interested in doing that graphic design work. And food and beverage. I just thought food and beverage sounded really interesting. So I started out by researching those kind of companies and then researching what opportunities they had and where I could potentially get hired in Portland, right? And then location was really important to me. About 2 years into going to school in Portland, I realized that Portland was the place for me, and I really wanted to be in the Pacific Northwest. So I really started to narrow in my networking on different companies that were based in, Portland or Seattle. And then something that, especially for some of you that might be interested in a career change, thinking about remote and hybrid work, asking if companies offer remote jobs, if they offer hybrid jobs. This was something that I did during COVID too, was start to ask people, what is it like to work fully remote? What's it like to work hybrid or work fully in an office? And that helps me learn the pros and cons of each of them and kind of what people liked or didn't like about doing each of those things. So I think that that was really important to start to ask those questions early on about what I wanted to do. One of my favorite things about going to workshops like this is hearing different people's job titles. That's like one of my favorite things, is going, oh, I didn't even know that was a thing you could do. Oh, I didn't even know that was an option. And I heard from so many different folks that had these really neat jobs, and then kind of backtracking and asking them how they got to where they are. How do you get to those really neat job titles? Not everybody is a audit accounting person, and not everybody just is a data analyst. There's some really interesting niche jobs out there that I wanted to learn more about. And then asking about the requirements. So what kind of skills might you need? Again, that backtracking from looking at a role or looking at a company. Does it require a high school diploma? Does it require a college degree? What kind of trainings can I do to fit this job description? And what might I need to do in the future too, to progress in this certain, maybe it's the industry, maybe it's a certain career path. So from there, I would go and think about who is in my network, because that also felt like a really overwhelming thing of, I'm 20 years old. Who's in my network? Who do I actually have in my network? Where I started was with my family friends, was talking to some of my parents' friends when I was in high school. This was more so when I was, deciding what I wanted to study and what I wanted to focus on. Who do my parents know that they might be able to connect me with, or who are some of my siblings' friends that my siblings are already in the workplace that I can connect with? Different school alumni. I have found that folks from my high school, folks from my college are always really interested in helping you and networking with you. Can you find different alumni LinkedIn groups or other groups that you can join to learn more about different opportunities? Another one that didn't dawn on me until I was working a few different jobs was your different coworker connections. I've worked in restaurants for a really long time, and through talking with the people I worked with, a lot of them either had, a second job that they did, or their partner did something really interesting. And so those can be really great folks to talk to as well, of understanding how they got to where they are, and just people that are close to you that you feel comfortable asking for these things with. And then career fairs and networking events are also really great ways to make connections. My school, offered career fairs that I'm going to talk a little bit more about later. But I also went out and looked at what opportunities were in Portland, and I was able to find a few different groups that I could attend their events. One of my favorites is the Oregon Outdoor Alliance. As I've kind of mentioned, if you were on earlier, I love being outside. I love camping and hiking. And so I thought, oh, working in the outdoor industry would be really neat. And so I started going to their events. I'd go by myself. They're held at Keene headquarters downtown, and I would go put on my little name tag and sit myself down to next to someone I didn't know. I didn't know anyone there. And just start talking with them and learning about what they do. And I was actually able to make some really, really neat connections and people that I still am connected with and chat with. And also learned really great volunteer opportunities and work with other cool orgs like Solve Oregon. So next I want to talk about utilizing your different tools. There are so many tools and ways that you can connect with people. The one that you probably hear about the most is LinkedIn. I had my sister's help when I was in college creating my LinkedIn, but some things I wanted to kind of highlight and point out to you all. This is my favorite LinkedIn hack that was told to me is if you already have LinkedIn, you can edit your URL to say just your name. If you create a LinkedIn, it will have this set of numbers at the end of it along with your name. And when you cut out the letters, it's easier for people to search you and your LinkedIn will be the first thing that comes up. Additionally, when you copy and paste your URL somewhere, maybe you put on your resume, maybe you link it in a job application, it's really nice and clean that it just says your first and last name and not the set of numbers. So that was a little hack given to me that I will share with anybody that will listen. Another great thing, if you're looking to switch careers or you're open to jobs, is clicking this open to. You can add, you've maybe seen it before, people put these little like circular images around their profile picture that says open to network or open to work. And you can put there, you can filter it out of, oh, I'm looking for a full-time remote job. I'm looking for a part-time internship in Portland. You can really narrow it down so that when people view your profile, they kind of get a sense already before even talking to you what you're interested in. So if you don't already have LinkedIn, LinkedIn is a great place to start. It is where you can find a lot of job opportunities. I primarily used it for networking opportunities, connecting with people and networking. So this is my little example that I pulled out from the archives of 2021 when I was probably a junior in college. I think this was the fall of my junior year of college. And I reached out to this woman who was an alumni of my school and worked at a marketing agency that I thought was really cool and I was interested in. So my 4 tips that can be difficult with using LinkedIn is to, 1, very simple, introduce yourself. Hello, my name is Megan Meckey and I'm a junior at the University of Portland. So right off the bat, she knows that I am currently a student at where she went to school. What are you asking for? I'm researching career opportunities and internships in marketing. I'm really interested in your career and was hoping that you might be available to spend about 30 minutes with me to talk about your work. So I give my intro, who I am, and then what I'm asking for. LinkedIn is kind of like Twitter where you only get a certain amount of characters. So I wasn't connected with her already. So I had to make it pretty short. If I had had more space, I would have said, I'm available at these times to connect. So you take the burden off of them to come up with when to meet. And then if you can make it personal too, if you maybe, hey, I was talking to this person and they recommended that I reach out to you, or I was talking to my coworker and they recommended they just mentioned you did this together, or I'd love to learn more about it, something like that, to kind of give it that personal feel. As you can see, I was successful in my networking here and had a really great 30-minute conversation with her and learned more about the agency world and what she liked and what she didn't like about it. So when you actually get to the informational interview, we've moved to a space that I find I've done so many of these remote. Sometimes if I can do it in person, have an in-person coffee with someone, I try to do that. Since the pandemic, I've found that it's really easy to just hop on a 30-minute Zoom with someone. My first tip is to be friendly. Just be yourself and be really interested in learning more about them. People love to talk about themselves and they love to share what they're doing and how they got there. And typically, if they're going to say yes to an informational interview, they're going to be inclined to share those things with you. I also always come prepared with questions, doing your research on what they do at their company, what their company does, maybe what their background was, what jobs they've held prior, so that you can come prepared with really interesting questions. Coming prepared with questions beyond what you could have learned from their LinkedIn or what you learned from the person that told you to connect with them. What can you ask them about their company that you can't find on their website? What can you ask them about their path, on how they got there, maybe their education or how they've developed these skills? Asking those questions is really important. So then with that, having a very clear ask of what you want to get out of it. So I did many different informational interviews and some focused on industry, some focused on the person's specific career path. And so depending, I would come in and say, hey, I saw that you worked at this agency, or you worked at these 2 different agencies, and now you're doing this. What made you make the switch from agency work to working for a company? Maybe it was, hey, I see that your job's fully remote and this company hires remote workers. Can you tell me more about that? Can you tell me what it's like to work remote and what the company culture is? Different things like that to help you make a really clear ask for them and to kind of give your 30 minutes with them some structure. This is my least favorite part, but I think a really important part is asking them to connect you with some folks too. At the end, maybe saying, hey, now that you kind of know what I'm interested in, or the career path I'm trying to build for myself, or the career switch I'm trying to make for myself, can you recommend me to 1 or 2 other people you know that might be interested in talking with me or might have similar interests to me, right? And then my most important tip is to always send a thank you note, whether it's shooting them a message on LinkedIn, if you got their email, sending them an email with a thank you, and pulling out something that you learned from there too. Hey, thanks so much for sharing about your company. I really appreciated the insights on X, Y, and Z. Or maybe it's, hey, thanks for that podcast recommendation. I listened to it and I really loved it. I wanted to share this one that's my fave, something like that, making it personal and showing that you paid attention to your conversation and got something out of it. And then my last bit that I also find can be difficult is to try to follow up in the future. I always thought this was difficult with informational interviews because you're asking for something with not a lot to give in return besides listening. And that can feel really unnatural and really difficult at times to ask for something without being able to give something in return, especially to a stranger, someone that you don't know. So trying to follow up in the future in little ways is always really great. So maybe it's liking their job promotion on LinkedIn, or liking their post, or reposting something that they said, or maybe shooting them an email and saying, hey, again, like I feel like in my informational interviews, I got a lot of book recommendations or podcast recommendations, often because I would ask for them, because that's a great follow-up point of, hey, I just finished that book that you recommended. Thanks so much. Hope things are well with you and the fam. Something really easy like that. So then when you do meet someone that then you want to follow up about a job or an opening at their company, you can say, hey, remember me from when we had that 30-minute conversation over Zoom and you told me all about your job? Can you tell me more about this job that I want to apply to? I find that to be difficult because, again, sometimes it's tricky to follow up on a 30-minute conversation where you were making the ask and you're going to keep asking for something, but trying to follow up to build that personal connection is really helpful.
So Natalia has a question and
Oh, yes.
wondering if you have any tips about fear and social anxiety of putting yourself out there.
Yeah, that's a great question. I struggled a lot with this in college, and I think that I got really lucky with being able to do so much over Zoom that really helped calm me. I found that I've done a lot of interviews for jobs over Zoom too, and I always have like a little something in my hand off to the side to fidget with, like as a physical thing to like help lower my stress. I also will practice with my friends. I've made my friends practice these things with me. I've made my siblings practice with me of, hey, this is the person I'm talking to. Can you maybe ask me a question back of what they might ask to kind of help calm yourself and know, kind of prep for it. I think also just being really okay with the fact that not everyone's going to respond. Not everyone's going to reach back out and be super nice and maybe as excited as you are, and being okay with that can help too. I've reached out to so many people and applied to so many jobs where I've heard nothing back. Even when I thought maybe there'd be a really strong connection there, or maybe I had met them once too and they didn't follow back up with me, even if I tried to. And just knowing that that's okay. That's part of it. Things happen. Not everyone lives on LinkedIn too. Not everyone lives in doing these things. And so really just being confident about the connections you are making and knowing that those can help lead you somewhere too. I think that that's something that was really comforting to me. And then always asking for help, asking whenever you need help, or if you need to practice close, trusted friends or family members, or maybe folks that you already work with. That was always really helpful to me. And like, hey, am I still on the right path? Is this still like, should I be pivoting to trying to do something else? Asking those questions to kind of stay confident in what you're doing is always helpful. Great question. I was going to pause before I move into my next section if there are any other questions, as I can't really see them come up since I'm in present mode.
She said thank you for those great tips.
You're welcome. Grace, was there any other ones in the chat?
No, that's it right now, but
Perfect.
I will try to politely interrupt you if there's.
Love it. Please do. So next we're going to talk about preparing for a career fair, or preparing for, this can really be used for any sort of networking opportunity. And how can you get the most out of it? Because again, these can be really overwhelming opportunities. So when I've prepped for these sorts of things, I've always tried to go in with a goal of, I want to connect with 5 companies. And you develop a list of the people that you want to talk to, because normally you get this information ahead of time, who you want to connect to, and then start to do your research on them. So when I would prepare for career fairs, or I would go to these Oregon Outdoor Alliance things, I would, kind of set myself up for, okay, I'm going to talk to these 5 companies, but I'm going to talk to these 2 to get started. And then here's my list of questions that I want to come with. When I would go to kind of more casual, general networking events, I would say, okay, maybe I want to talk to 3 companies, and then I want to try to mix and mingle with some people in line. Sometimes you can't always set a really specific goal for what's going to happen. And then preparing really interesting and thoughtful questions about the business and industry is a great way to help yourself prep for these things. Not asking factual questions that you can find on their website is a great place to get started. So a big career fair, for example, one that I went to a year ago, was one of my favorite companies, the Midwest and Me. I love Tillamook cheese. I love Tillamook as a company. I just think they're really cool in what they do. They're a certified B company. They make really delicious things. And they were going to be at this career fair, and I really wanted to talk to their rep. I really was interested in working with them. And so I had already done a lot of research on the company. I'd done some informational interviews with folks. So I knew quite a bit about the company that I did not need to ask about how many people work here, where are you based out of, questions like that. I could ask something really thoughtful. So like I mentioned earlier, I'm from Minnesota, and since going to college in the 4 years that I was in Portland and then going back and forth to home, I noticed a really big increase when my senior year rolled around, of Tillamook products in our grocery stores. We would have like a few different cheeses and maybe one ice cream flavor, but by the time I was a senior, we had their cream cheeses and more cheese and more yogurts and things like this. And you could tell there was a really big expansion. And I talked to my sister about it, who lived in Boston, and she was noticing the same thing. So when it was my time to walk up to their booth and talk to their rep, I knew that was the question I was going to ask. I do my little elevator pitch about myself that I'm going to go over next. And I asked them, I was like, hey, I'm from Minneapolis, Minnesota. I've been here for a few years now. And as I've been traveling home back and forth between school years, I've noticed a really big increase in Tillamook products in our grocery stores. Can you tell me more about that expansion that you're making? And she told me about this 5-year project that they've been working on expanding into the Midwest, expanding onto the East Coast. And it was really interesting because it also lined up very well with how long I'd been going to school and just had noticed it happening. Flash forward to this fall, I ran into that rep at an event and went up and said hi. And she was like, oh yeah, you're the girl from Minnesota. So if you can ask that really thoughtful, maybe little stumping question, it really helps people to remember you. So asking something to stand out and to be remembered. This isn't going to happen at every company you talk to. I've talked to plenty of people that they were maybe not interested in me, and maybe I was not interested in them. Or I asked them about something and it was the 100% opposite of what I thought it was going to be. Talking to folks that you think you might not be interested in too is also really important, because you never know who you're going to connect with. I've talked to many construction companies. Apparently, Oregon has a really large construction and engineering industry. And so I've talked to many more construction companies than I thought I would in my day, and have made some really great connections too. So don't just talk to the companies that you think are going to be the most interesting. You really never know who you're going to really connect with. So for whether this is at a career fair or at a networking event, or you're meeting people, maybe at one of these GetAhead events, you want to sort of have this elevator pitch about yourself. And so this was also advice that was given to me of your first 30 seconds, you should be able to say your name, rank, and serial number, which just kind of makes me giggle of here's who I am, here's what I do, here's something about me, right? And then your next 30 seconds is something about your background or career aspirations that brings you to this person or to this company or to this event that you're at. So my example is for the first 30 seconds. Hi, my name is Meagan Meckey. I'm currently a barista at Stumptown Coffee, and I'm looking to change careers to digital marketing. So that kind of gives you my name and rank. This past summer, I volunteered at a local nonprofit where I helped them build and refine their social media presence on Instagram and Twitter. Gives you a little bit more about what I've been up to, what I'm doing. While I enjoy developing and posting content, I found myself more fascinated by the work performed by the nonprofit's advertising agency around measuring the effectiveness of the social media campaigns. Starting to tell you about my career aspirations. I know that your company is a leader in this area, which is why I'm here to talk with you today. So you're talking about yourself very briefly, what you're interested in, and then why you're talking to them. I sometimes think too, I noticed with myself that I knew these things, but I wouldn't articulate them out to people. Like, you know what you're trying to do. You know that you're trying to make a career change from this to this, or you're looking to develop yourself with these certain skills. But it's really important to be able to articulate that to the person that you're talking to. And so this is a nice like little framework of being able to pitch yourself. And maybe it looks a lot different. Maybe you're saying, hey, I do this with this company and I'd love to learn more about how we could partner. Or maybe it's something like that. This kind of framework can be helpful in many different situations, but this has been sort of how I've navigated going about meeting people and networking. And it's not always going to sound really nice like this. I have definitely blabbled on and said some really weird things probably, and stumbled on my words and not gotten the right thing out or not said what I wanted to say. And that's totally okay, because that's just what happens. You're one human being talking to another human being, and they're going to understand. So taking a little bit of that pressure off yourself, knowing that the person you're talking to has also had to do this and they know what you're going through in making these asks. That helps humanize the process for me, and knowing that they are not this robot machine that is holding if I'm going to get a job or if I'm not going to get a job. They're another person too who's helping to hopefully help you out. So at these networking events and at career fairs, you really want to be able to engage the company representative long enough for whoever's there, so that now they're trying to pitch the company to you. We spend a lot of time trying to sell ourselves to someone or trying to market yourself for a job. You really want to be able to also learn about and vet the company that you're maybe interviewing for, maybe you're learning about. You're equally kind of interviewing them to see if they're going to be a good fit for you. And so it's important to kind of throw back those questions and ask them too, so that you can learn more. Often, and I'm sure a lot of you know this from going to different events, your interactions are going to be really short. They're probably not going to be a lot longer than 5 minutes. So how much can you get out of that? Can you get their email? Can you get their LinkedIn? Can you get a follow-up conversation, right? And so sometimes if that conversation is going well, you can say something to the effect of, I know you have other job seekers to talk to. If you have time to talk later, if you're available, I'd love to come back when you have a break. Or for me, I oftentimes would say, I would love to connect with you on LinkedIn, or I'd love to connect with you on a Zoom call in the next few weeks. So you can keep that going, and then you're not just one of the hundreds of people that they've talked to today. You've made that connection, and now you have their information, and you can follow up with them in the future. So some other general tips for prepping for networking events is to try to use LinkedIn before or use information from their website to find out what types of people are in the job that you want. Similar to what we were talking about before about industry and location, seeing who's at these events, who can you talk to that you're interested in? And maybe seeing some of these folks, what's their background? Is it similar to yours? Can you find folks at the company that have had a similar career path to you? And then this can be tricky, but sometimes you're able to do this when you're waiting in line, looking up the company's rep that you now can see in front of you, and maybe trying to learn something about them really quickly before you go and talk to them. And like I mentioned before, talk to reps from companies that you might not know. Oftentimes at these events, folks are looking for the Nikes and Adidas of the world, but can you make that connection with that small marketing agency that is going to be a really good fit for you? Or can you go talk to the folks with no one in line to kind of practice your elevator pitch before you go talk to the Tillamook's of the world that you're really, really wanting to talk to and maybe a little nervous about? And also not letting reputation of what it is or isn't a good company or a job fit deter you from talking to anyone. That was probably one of the best pieces of advice that I got of you never know where you're going to land. And when I was mentioning industry before, I was not interested in working at a financial institution. It wasn't really something I thought I could do or could see myself doing. And now I've been in one for almost a year, and it's felt like a really fabulous fit of all my interests and of my things I studied. And so being really open to different opportunities. And then try to, with these sorts of events, to take advantage of offsite locations. Maybe you catch someone in the elevator and you can very clearly see that they're wearing their whatever branded polo with their name tag, and you can see and maybe say, hey, are you going to the blah, blah, blah event? So am I. Would love to talk to you about this, or blah, blah, blah. Catching them at different points can be great ways to make those connections as well. Any questions about the career fairs and networking events?
Okay, so we do have a question. It says
Perfect.
it's a good idea to have a business card and a resume available to hand to them at the end of the conversation at job fairs.
Yes, so what I have found is that when I was in school, I obviously didn't have a business card. I feel like I do utilize mine more now, and now we'll give it to people to connect. I also found at the last few career fairs that I went to, a lot of people were not taking, like, didn't want to take a physical resume. So I had and this kind of depends on where you are. So maybe I always still bring a few printed copies, but I also have a really quick QR code now that people can scan and I can give it to them. Or connecting, I always try to connect on LinkedIn first or get their email. Getting the email is the easiest way to get in contact with people. So maybe being able to write down your email and give it to them, or write down your LinkedIn and give it to them. I think those are some of the best ways to show up and share your information. And then also not being afraid to ask for theirs and asking, hey, can I get your email? Because they're often bringing their business cards. Hey, can I grab your business card so I can follow up with you and send you my resume? That was something I would do too. Hey, can I get your business card so I can email you my resume?
Absolutely.
And then they have it in their inbox.
Okay, Aletha is asking, how do you know what companies are going to be at each job fair ahead of time? And if I could just speak to the INCIGHT job fairs before you answer, is that once you register for one of our events, I will email you a list of the employers that are signed up at that time you register. And then I continue to weekly reach out to the job seekers and let them know as that list continues to grow. Because sometimes I'm getting, employers to register the day before.
Yep.
But I don't know if
Yes.
that's the case of every job fair, but I know most job fairs do have a listing of employers that will be there.
I agree. I have not been to one where I haven't gotten the list ahead of time, which is great. You usually at least have the key idea of who's going to show up. Like Grace mentioned, things will change last minute. That really big career fair I went to, they had updated us like a week before. Like a few companies had to drop out, and Tillamook came in as a result of that, which was awesome. Like they weren't originally going to be there and then ended up being there. So usually you have that information beforehand so you can do some research. There's also a lot of industry specific career fairs and networking opportunities. Another one that I've been to that's in Oregon is there's like a PNW specific sports networking where like the Trailblazers are at, the Seahawks are at, from the Hillsborough Hops, like all these different sports teams have one. It's usually at either Providence Park or Moda. And so you kind of have an idea of like, oh, if I'm going to go to a sports industry, PNW specific career fair, I kind of have a sense of who's going to be there. But I would say 9 times out of 10, you know who's going to show up so you can prep beforehand. And then if you do get there and you notice, oh, hey, I didn't recognize those companies on the list, you can quickly do a little research on them ahead of time, or ask someone that's working the event and ask them about them too.
Hey, and Sylvia just added here that Oregon Employment Department usually has a list of job fairs around the state. And most of the time, the specific job fairs have a list of potential employers available. And if you click on them, you can look them up.
That's awesome. Thanks for sharing. Were there any other questions?
Nope, that's it.
So some of my final tips, I think one of my big themes is to really be open and be curious. You never know where you're going to land or what you're going to like and what you're going to do, and really being open to trying different things. I think especially as you're looking to maybe change a career or looking to build in the career that you're in or build in the industry you're in, being open to, oh, maybe I should try to do this, or maybe I should try to level up this skill here, and you can learn that from networking with people. If you're already at a company that you like or enjoy, there's also a lot you can do to learn there and to ask questions there. That was something. I'm pretty young at the company that I'm at OnPoint right now, and there's a lot of great people to learn from. And so when I was starting, I set up a lot of meetings to get to know the people in this department and learn what they do and how they got there, and learn from this other group, and continue to attend trainings that my company offers. INCIGHT did a great training that I got to go to too. So going to those different things that can help you continue to learn and develop. My other tip is to set a schedule for yourself. If you are looking, like actively looking for a different job, of, okay, I'm going to reach out to this many people in a week and I'm going to do this many job applications or something like that. When I was a junior in college, it was, I'm going to try to do one informational interview a week in my fall semester, which I did not do one every single week, but I did a lot because that was my goal. And then in the spring, it was, okay, can I apply to 3 internships at least a week? So setting goals for yourself of, okay, I want to reach out to this many people, or I want to connect with this many people, or even just starting with, I want to do the research on this industry. I want to do the research on these companies, and then move into the asking people for informational interviews or making connections, things like that. Since networking and can be so overwhelming, setting those goals or setting that schedule for yourself can be supremely helpful. I put my information here. I'm happy to connect with each and every one of you. As a first, maybe it's a first informational interview and you want someone to practice with, I'm happy to be that person. Happy to share my LinkedIn. Always happy to share the LinkedIn tips and tricks that I have. There's so many out there, and I've, during my time, learned a lot about how to use it. So I'm always happy to share that. And so I just like to end with any questions. I feel like I've seen some pop up. So what questions do you all have?
Yes, so Lila says, do you know of any local organizations that help with networking tips and job placement for divergent?
Neurodivergent?
There you go. Thinking specifically of organizations like, oh, I lost where I was reading.
Oh, sorry, I probably did that since I unshared.
Oh, like Potentia, if you are familiar. If you're familiar with that company, Potentia.
I am not familiar. Off the top of my head, an organization that I've worked with that I really enjoy is Dress for Success Oregon. They host a lot of really great events similar to the GetAhead ones on looking for how to network, how to meet people, and prepping. They do a lot of prep for interviews. So if you're looking for someone to prep for interviews with, Dress for Success Oregon has a lot of great career prep. Also, INCIGHT is my other shout out.
And then Gus is saying also recommend connecting with union in your intended industry. It can be a path to a job, but also a great way to learn the pros and cons of that industry.
Mm-hmm.
And just, kind of adding to your informational interview, I also agree that those are just really valuable learning tools. And, even if you don't get a job with that company, you're learning about different things. And, like you said, be curious and, always be open to new possibilities. And I thought that was great. You also said, talk to every employer when you're at a career event. And that's things we also stress, to the job seekers that come to our events, because you never know. And if you are a little bit nervous, maybe go talk to the other companies that you not specifically want to hone in on and get comfortable, and then later go to your, like, this is the company I really
Yes.
talk to. And that just gives you a little time if you're at the career fair, to kind of settle your nerves down and have some conversations. And
Yeah. So since I saw someone was like asking about remote jobs. So I've primarily used tools like LinkedIn or Glassdoor, Indeed to search for jobs and the actual company's websites. Um, so one of the things that you can do when you're on LinkedIn, boom, that was my first recommended, is searching for remote. You can filter out different jobs that are remote. And something I think also you can look for is you don't just need to look in your city that you're in. You can kind of look maybe all over the region that you're in, depending on time zone things. So you can look, I'm looking for jobs. I'm looking for entry level remote. I only want remote. And then it's going to show me all these different types of jobs. So you can get really specific and see. I would say larger companies tend to have a lot of remote options and will have remote employees. I don't have any off the top of my head. So many companies are in flux right now, deciding how many people, like who they want in the office and when, and kind of still figuring that out. So I think just asking is totally appropriate. And some companies, they'll maybe say here, or maybe you can work something out where it can be remote too. Also back to the kind of networking, something I like to point out in LinkedIn is something I found really helpful is looking at groups. So you can join different groups on LinkedIn. So I've got some of these different alumni groups that I'm a part of. This was a business fraternity that I was in. I'm also in the sustainability and corporate social responsibility group, where they just post really interesting stuff about what different industries are up for or working on. And then you can search for different things of like digital marketing. I could request to join that and then join this group that's talking about digital marketing. Obviously you can tell this LinkedIn knows what I'm interested in. Microsoft Excel users. Maybe you want to learn more about Microsoft Excel, so you can join. But there's a lot of other great ways to kind of create little networks for yourself and to find groups to learn with if you're not sure where to start. Let's see if there's other questions.
oh
I
yeah,
love that.
shared
I love
a link there.
Yeah, partners in diversity is great. I love it. Any other questions out there? I love the tip sharing from other folks in the chat.
Max List is another good one for nonprofits, because they
Yeah, I
mostly
love
focus
Max
on
List.
nonprofits. So if you're looking to get into that, industry.
Yeah, Max List. I often too will just get inspiration from them. When I was searching for jobs, I would go and see who's hiring and then go look into those companies because I hadn't heard of them before.
Yeah. They have great podcasts too that they do weekly.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I just heard one last week about a gal talking about career change. And It was very informative. I was glad I listened for the half hour.
Good. This is the group that I'm a part of. If anybody ever wants a friend to go with, I try to get to a lot of their events, Oregon Outdoor Alliance. CNA medical field, there's a lot of really specific events too for medical fields. I think Gus also mentioned, you know, talking to union reps in those areas could be great to learn about different job opportunities. There are a lot of recruiters out there too. This was something I didn't touch on because I never worked a lot with a recruiter when I was doing my job search, but I know that could be a little bit more common for certain industries. So you could always reach out to recruiters on LinkedIn or from different kind of local recruiting firms. There's one that's slipping my name, Welch, Boley
Welch.
Welch.
Yeah.
They're a great recruiting firm located in Portland that can help connect folks too. But then looking at, I think with medical field too, you can look at kind of the major hospitals like the Providences, the OHSUs of the world to see where they have job openings because I feel like they're, from my friends that work there, they're always hiring people, especially CNA. Yeah. Glad I could help a little bit with the medical field. Not where I am, but I have a lot of nursing friends at a lot of those hospitals. And it's quite interesting, their job process, compared to how I went about applying for jobs, how they went about applying for jobs. Quite different. They had a plethora of opportunities.
Yeah. So Priya was asking if she could share her resume with.
Oh, yes, please.
Yeah, you gave your email at the end there and you can maybe.
Yeah, I'll send it in the chat too.
The chat as well. And then you can always send your resume to me. I do resume reviews pretty regularly and I'm glad to take a look at it.
Yeah, I love it. I was just home and helping my brother review his resume and adding, and I think it's really helpful to get second set of eyes on it. I always have a friend or someone review mine for me that knows me pretty well too, because they're like, well, you also did this and you also did this when you were in this job. And remember how you were doing this? So I'll be like, oh yeah, because it's really easy to sell yourself short and to not think that these certain things can turn into skills that might not necessarily be from a explicit job that you did or a specific actual that's what I'm looking for, like getting a degree. You learn from what you do every day, not just from going to school. And so being able to articulate that on a resume is really helpful. So happy to send that over or like review if anybody wants help. I love resumes.
Absolutely.
And LinkedIn.
Yeah. And the good thing too, a lot of times you look at your document, you read it over and over and you won't see no problem.
Yes.
And then
Yeah.
you're reading over like a typo or a spelling error over and over again because you're sure in your mind that everything's right. So
Yeah.
that second set of eyes, you know, is always really good.
Yeah. Sylvia just mentioned in the chat that volunteer experience counts too. I think that that's a really great point, and something especially when I work with high schoolers, I've noticed was they'll be doing all these, like they'll be doing childcare for their siblings. They'll be doing these different things that they don't think are experience, or they don't think to put volunteer experience. And those are all where you develop these skills that can be applied to the different jobs you want. So learning how to articulate that and put that in a resume and talk about that in an interview is really helpful. So happy if anybody wants to talk about that. I for sure did that a lot when I was in school and had, you know, little job experience. How can I translate working in a restaurant and working retail to wanting a marketing internship?
Yes. And yes, stay-at-home moms, definitely. They are
Yeah,
working all the time. They are learning all the time.
Yeah.
Trying to figure out how to make something work. So we do have a couple more minutes here. If anybody else has any questions or, you know, just maybe an experience you want to share that might be helpful to other job seekers, please do. Pia, you have any thoughts of wisdom you want to share?
Oh, I just want to say thank you, Megan. When I meet you in person as well as on Zoom, I feel like you have so much wonderful ideas to share with people. And
Yes.
And you make it,
Yeah.
you make some of it sound simple because a lot of it is simple. It's just little ways for us to prepare and get ready.
Yep.
But thank you for sharing today.
Yeah. Always.
I was going to say one thing. So I work with folks who are looking for jobs as well. And one of the things that I like to remind folks that I'm working with is as a lot of the folks that I'm working with are just getting into housing for the first time in a while. And some of them have criminal records. And just like we were saying, the thing about like volunteer experience, you can do the same thing with under the table work. Like if your work has not been through a licensed company, that's fine. Even prison labor, like people who had a job while they were in prison, you worked in the commissary, you worked mopping floors, that's still a skill. And using it as such is a way of like improving that resume. So a thing doesn't have to look legitimate or whatever. It can be a like, I know how to do a thing, I'm good at a thing. That's all it has to be to end up on that resume. And so use those things, even if it's whatever, like as a way of selling yourself instead of selling yourself short.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that, Gus. Something else I always say to folks is you need experience to get experience, and you have the experience. You have the experience to get these positions. It might not look like these resume examples that you see online, but your experience is valuable. And obviously you learn something from it. Most things that we do, we learn something from. And so again, just like the learning how to articulate that and share that out, because oftentimes I have found too, people don't care so much about where you got that, how you learn these skills. They just want to make sure that you have these skills and that you can do the job that they're asking you to do. Good advice.
Hi, Megan.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Sorry.
Go for it.
I'm Priya once again. Thank you so much for this session. I really got a lot of tips. Thank you, Megan and Grace. I have two things to share with you guys. So first, I'm searching for a job for almost now 8 months, 7 to 8 months, I would say. And I don't have work experience here in this country. I'm back from India. And basically, I'm an assistant architect where I used to do designing in AutoCAD and Revit. But since I have two boys, I have a 2-year-old boy recently who is premature. So I wanted something like a remote job. So currently, I just thought I'll just change my career into data entry or so, something, where I can work from home. So I have been searching, and I am a bit, I was also ex-student in a PCC community, like Portland Community College, where I did some of my courses and all. They have been helping and suggesting so many things. But so far, no luck. I sometimes feel that maybe I am from a different country, or maybe the people think that I don't have work experience and all. But I did work in my country for almost 3 years, and I'm an ex-volunteer in OHSU. Here in the OHSU hospital in Portland. I have like 5 years of volunteering experience in OHSU hospital and the libraries as well. But I don't know, sometimes I feel really having those voluntary experience also is not helping me. So this is my first concern, like how to and all. And second thing, I want everybody to, mainly who are searching for jobs, please don't fall into this big like hassle what I fall. Some people take your resume as search in the like Indeed or maybe in LinkedIn and all. They call you. They are basically like a recruiting company. They say that we will, if you pay this much money, we will train you and get a job and all. But I have been betrayed from them. I paid like $700 for them, and I was been telling them again and again, I'm into architecture profession. I wanted something in that. But the person was saying me like, see, if you do this kind SAS course, then you can jump into the architecture field, that, these and all. He was like compelling me and trying to make me to understand and all. I took like first 2 classes and immediately I called them and said, see, I'm not able to understand because it's not my cup of tea, you know. So I told him I don't want to waste your time and my time because it was like 12 weeks of classes. So I thought I'd tell him before so that I wanted my refund back. But you know, they are declining my calls and I don't know what to do. Can you please suggest me something in this so I can they're declining my calls. I also wrote an emails, and in the emails they are saying that, oh, this is we already mentioned in the policy that this and all. But you know, even the day I was signing the form, I called that person and I said, see, I can't see anything related to my AutoCAD. It only shows SAS, but I'm still worried and scared. And then he was like compelling me, no, 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 don't worry about that. After this course, definitely you can jump into this architecture, this. So I'm really, my husband is the only person who is taking care of whole family. I feel so bad myself that I lost $700. So can you guys help me in this part? How can I approach, whom to approach, or can I file a case, or how is that?
Yeah, first, I'm really sorry that that happened. Applying for jobs can often be a full-time job, I find. With this specific recruiting company, I would be interested if there was maybe a different contact for you to reach out to about getting that refund. I would love if you wanted to connect further after this call, maybe talk about how we could work on your resume or, think about some folks that I could connect you with for the industry that you're looking in and kind of learning how to translate those things. I'm definitely, since I was born and raised here, I'm not the best person to give advice on how to translate that work. But I know that that's often a struggle for people of being able to articulate, hey, I have these skills from living in this country that do apply here. And sharing that and making that known. So I have a few other areas that I will look up for you that might be good for you to reach out to them too. But if you want to shoot me an email, I'd love to see how I can help. Grace, I don't know
Oh,
if you wants to add.
yeah, I'll do that. Thank you, Megan. Thank you,
Yeah,
Grace.
good. Okay,
Thank you
good.
so much.
Yeah. Natalia just sent a great resource in the chat too. Thank you.
Great. I see that. Okay, anybody else have any other questions before we wrap it up today? I concur with Pia as far as just your presentation and you making it just seem comfortable and easy, and you just think ahead and have some preparation and just go and be yourself, and you'll make a great presentation, and hopefully the doors will open and you'll find new connections, and better yet, and a good job.
Yeah. Yeah, happy again, connect with anyone in the future. Shoot me an email, connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm on there all the time.
Great.
So thank you all for coming and for taking the time to listen. I hope you all got something good out of it.
I think everybody did. Thank you,
Yeah.
Megan, for presenting today at our event.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, she's has shared a PDF of her slide presentation, so I will send that with you a little bit later today once we have the recording on our website, and I'll send you that link as well, so you can go back and reread and re-listen to the tips that Megan has shared with us today. So thank you, everybody, and have enjoy the rest of your day.
Enjoy the sunshine.
Thank you.